Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
WWDC 2025, it just happened
Yeah.
June 9th. And wow, quite a stack of announcements from Apple.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot came out of that week. We've been digging into the sources you shared.
Right. And they cover, well, pretty much everything. iPhone, iPad, Mac, the Watch, Vision Pro.
Right.
Even AirPods got some news.
That's right. There's definitely a lot there.
Right.
So our mission in this deep dive is really to cut through all that noise.
And pull out the important bits.
Exactly. The most exciting, the most practical updates you actually need to know about. We want to get you those key insights, quickly and clearly.
Makes sense. Because from what we're seeing in these sources, whether it's just like small design tweaks or these big new features, especially that intelligence stuff, things are going to feel quite different when these updates actually land later this year in the fall.
Yeah, there's a definite shift. So where should we start?
How about right at the top? The OS names themselves are changing.
Let's do it. Yeah, that's maybe the most fundamental change. Forget the version numbers like iOS 19 or watchOS 12. Apple's moving to the release year.
Okay. So everything we're talking about this coming this fall is now 26.
Exactly. iOS 26, iPadOS 26, macOS 26, watchOS 26, tvOS 26, and yep, visionOS 26.
Huh. Why the change, do you think?
Well, the thinking seems to be, referencing the year might just be easier to track than remembering which number comes next.
I guess that makes sense. It's clearer, maybe?
It's definitely a clear shift. And the usual timeline applies. Developer betas are out now. Public release comes in the fall.
Got it. New names for a new year. And speaking of new, there's also a visual refresh happening, the sources call it. Liquid glass.
Liquid glass, yeah. It sounds kind of cool, actually. Visually, what it means is adding more transparency to interface elements.
Transparency, like see-through.
Sort of. Buttons, switches, text fields, media controls. They get this added transparency effect. Think of it like letting the background, whatever's behind them, show through a bit more subtly.
Okay, so parts of the UI become a bit more translucent. Is there a good example of where you'd really notice this?
Yeah, the sources point to the iOS 26 lock screen as a prime example. Because of this liquid glass effect, your wallpaper becomes much more visible behind the date, the time, the notification previews.
Ah, I see. So it feels less like the numbers are just slapped on top.
Exactly. It's meant to be a visual refresh, make things feel maybe a bit lighter, more integrated with your own wallpaper choice.
Okay, so a fresh look. But beyond the visuals, what about the actual apps we use constantly on iOS 26? Any key changes there?
Yeah, several core apps are getting tweaked. Safari, for instance, is moving to more of a full screen view for web pages, less Chrome around the edges.
Okay, more focus on the content. What else?
The camera app layout is getting simplified. It'll mainly show photo and video options right up front.
In the other modes.
You just swipe the toolbar, and then you'll find things like slow-mo or cinematic, just trying to streamline it.
That sounds useful, especially for quickly grabbing a photo or video. What about the phone app? That's pretty fundamental.
The phone app is getting a layout tweak, too. Favorites, recents, and voicemail are being combined into one panel.
Ah, simplifying the tabs.
Yeah, it seems the goal is just efficiency, making those core communication tools a bit quicker to navigate, maybe less cluttered.
Efficiency is good. Messages is another huge one. What's new in the Messages app?
Messages gets a few things, seems focused on group chats and giving you more control. You'll be able to change screen backgrounds in group chats.
Oh, fun. A little bit of personalization.
Yeah, and maybe more practically, you can create polls right inside group chats now.
Okay, that is useful for making plans.
Definitely. Plus, you'll see typing indicators in group chats now, and there's a new option to specifically block messages from unknown senders.
Polls and typing indicators.
Yeah.
That should smooth out group conversations quite a bit. Okay, let's shift over to the Mac. macOS 26 is boosting Spotlight.
Yes, Spotlight's getting noticeably smarter. The sources say Apple's really focused on improving how relevant the search results are.
Better results are always welcome.
And they're adding personalized filtering options, so it should be easier to zero in on specific files, folders, apps, or even messages you're hunting for.
Faster searching. But it's doing more than just searching now, right?
Exactly. This is the really interesting part. Spotlight is gaining the ability to perform actions directly from the results.
Actions. Like what?
Well, say you search for a document. You might be able to kick off an email about it or create a note related to it right there from the Spotlight window.
Huh. So you don't need to open the file first, then switch apps.
That seems to be the goal, integrating search with doing. It should make acting on information much, much faster.
Search and act. That could be a significant workflow improvement for Mac users. Okay, let's talk platform specifics. iPadOS 26 seems to be getting some serious multitasking upgrades.
Oh yeah, this is a major headline for iPad. The big one is the new window feature. It finally lets you resize app windows freely.
Well, yeah. Like on a Mac?
Pretty much. You can resize them, arrange them wherever you want on the screen, and have multiple windows open at the same time.
Wow, okay. That's a big step towards more desktop-like functionality.
It really is. And the sources definitely make that comparison. There's also a more precise mouse pointer coming, and a new menu bar you can access by swiping down within an app.
A menu bar on iPad.
Yeah, offering different options and commands, again, feeling a bit more like macOS. They're even bringing a version of the Mac's preview app over for viewing and annotating files.
So the lines between iPadOS and macOS are getting, well, blurrier.
It certainly feels like a deliberate push in that direction, making the iPad much more capable for complex tasks and workflows.
That could really change things for people using iPads for work or creative projects. What about the smallest screen, Apple Watch? What's new in watchOS 26?
Well, watchOS 26 gets that liquid glass design refresh we talked about earlier.
Right, the transparency.
But functionally, there's a neat new interaction, a wrist flick gesture.
A wrist flick. What for?
Specifically for dismissing notifications, so you can clear them without actually having to tap the screen. Hands-free dismissal.
Ah, that could be handy if your other hand is busy.
Exactly. And they're bringing in some AI, too, with a new Workout Friend feature.
Workout Friend, what does that do?
It's AI-based, designed to give you personalized advice and maybe some encouragement while you're actually doing a workout. Context-aware feedback on your wrist.
Huh. An AI coach during your run or cycle.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And Vision Pro, any updates for the spatial computer?
Yeah, for visionOS 26, the interesting bit we learned about is hardware compatibility. They're adding support for Sony's PlayStation VR2 Sense controllers.
Really? PSVR controllers?
Yep, which opens the door for users to play a wider range of existing VR games on the Vision Pro, using controllers they might already be familiar with.
That's unexpected. Expands the gaming potential quite a bit. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the big theme. Apple Intelligence. How do you actually use this stuff on iOS 26?
Right. So the way you actually invoke the AI assistant is, well, it's kind of surprising. You use the same buttons you use to take a screenshot.
Wait, the screenshot buttons. Like volume up and power.
That's what the sources indicate. Yeah, definitely. Memorable.
It's easy to trigger, maybe, if you take screenshots often.
Could be. We'll have to see how that works in practice. But once you do invoke it, what can this on-screen intelligence do?
Yeah, what's the capability?
It seems very focused on context, understanding what's currently on your screen. You'll be able to use a ChatGPT integration, apparently, to ask follow-up questions about whatever you're looking at.
So ask questions about an article or a photo.
Exactly. Or another example, if you see an object in an image, you could use the AI to search online stores like Google or Etsy for similar items.
Visual search built right in.
Kind of. And they're making a point, the sources say, that a lot of this processing happens on device.
Which is important for privacy and speed, right?
Yep. Definitely seems to be the angle. That contextual help based on your screen seems really powerful. And then there's the real-time translation feature.
Ah, yes, that sounded incredibly useful. How does that work?
It's AI-powered translation integrated into the core communication apps. So in messages, texts can be automatically translated.
Just appears translated.
Seems like it. And in phone calls, you'll actually hear the translated audio in real time.
Whoa.
And for FaceTime, you'll see real-time translated captions while the other person is speaking.
That could genuinely break down language barriers for a lot of people. Huge potential there.
Absolutely. It really simplifies that cross-language communication.
Now, you mentioned the keynote maybe felt a bit light on the AI details, despite the big Apple Intelligence push. Was it all just consumer features?
Not entirely. There's a really significant piece for developers that the sources highlighted. Apple is going to allow third-party app developers to access the on-device large language model.
The same one powering Apple Intelligence.
That's the understanding, which means developers can build their own AI tools and features into their apps using Apple's underlying tech.
Ah, so that's the ecosystem play. It's not just Apple's features, it's enabling others.
Exactly. That's crucial. It suggests a lot of the really interesting AI innovations might actually come from third-party apps, leveraging this capability over time.
That makes sense. Give the tools to the community. Okay, so beyond the OS and the core AI, any other notable updates? Gaming, audio.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, there's a new dedicated Game Hub app.
A game hub, what's that for?
Basically, a central place for all your gaming stuff on Apple devices. Access Apple Arcade games, discover new ones, see your App Store downloads in a library tab.
Kind of like a launcher.
Yeah, and it includes a play together option to make it easier to start games with friends, just consolidating that experience.
Streamlining gaming access.
Okay.
And AirPods. What's new for the earbuds?
Two interesting things mentioned for AirPods. First, a kind of unexpected camera control. You'll apparently be able to tap the body of the AirPod itself.
Tap the AirPod.
Yeah, to trigger the camera shutter on your iPhone or iPad.
Huh. A hands-free remote shutter in your ear. That's different.
Definitely innovative. The second feature sounds really useful, though it's noted as still being under development.
Okay, what is it?
It's about isolating your voice for recording, aiming for studio quality voice capture, even if you're in a really noisy place.
Voice isolation, like for podcasts or calls from a busy street.
Exactly. And the sources specifically say this is planned for the next AirPods, the AirPods 4, and also the AirPods Pro 2.
Wow, that could be a game changer for creators or just anyone needing clear audio on the go.
It really could be. So yeah, those are kind of the main highlights we pulled from the sources.
Right. The OS name changes, that liquid glass design, the app tweaks, the big iPad multitasking leap, the watch gestures, Vision Pro controllers.
The whole Apple Intelligence layer, on-screen help, translation, developer access, the game hub, and those new AirPod tricks. Quite a list.
It really is. So let's bring it back to you, the listener. What's the bottom line? How does all this stuff actually change how you'll use your devices come this fall?
Well, the so what here seems to be that all these updates, when you put them together, are really designed to make your devices feel more intuitive, hopefully more powerful, and just more connected to what you're doing in the moment.
For context aware.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it's that smoother multitasking on the iPad or getting AI assistance that understands what's on your screen, or even just those little app refinements or the new ways to interact like the wrist flick or tapping your AirPod.
It's about smoothing things out.
Smoothing things out, making common tasks maybe a bit easier, and unlocking some new capabilities you didn't have before, hopefully leading to those little aha moments when you discover them.
Makes sense. It feels like the devices are adapting more to you and your situation. So we've taken this deep dive into the sources, pulled out what we think are the key insights from WWDC 2025.
Yeah, tried to distill all those announcements down to the changes that are most likely to impact how you actually use your iPhone, your iPad, your Mac day to day.
So maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on as you think about all this. With so many of these new features, especially the intelligent stuff, really leaning on understanding the context, what's on your screen, maybe your activity, your conversations, what does that really suggest about where computing is heading? Towards something truly deeply personalized to your specific needs in your environment? And how might that fundamentally change how you interact with your tech down the road?